Hello everyone, welcome to Psyched Syed. It's your friend again, Sumbul. This video is the last segment of the series History of Psychology, and this is part 3. And today we are going to learn about various perspectives in modern psychology. The various perspectives in modern psychology which we will be discussing today are: okay, so these are the major perspectives in modern psychology. We have biological approach, we have cognitive approach, and social psychology, evolutionary psychology, and last but not the least, we have the humanistic approach. So these are the major perspectives in contemporary psychology which you're always going to come across if you're exploring this topic. Now we are going to begin with the biological approach. Okay, so the biological approach or the biological perspective of modern psychology, it focuses strictly, very strictly on our biology. Yes, it focuses strictly on our biology, and what it all includes is genetics, our immune system, our human brain, which is considered to be a very powerful organ, then hormones. So these are the things that we study in the biological approach whenever we are trying to explore human psychology using this approach. The approach believes that our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, our behaviors have a biological cause, have a biological cause. So this is what this perspective believes, and biology can explain it all. The biological perspective says majority of our behavior, the majority of our behavior is inherited. That's E, inherited. So this is what the biological approach says. Like for an example, if a child's parents are aggressive, just take a very simple example. Parents are aggressive, then the chances are that the child will also grow on to become aggressive as well, and that's how the biological approach is going to explain it, because the genetics are playing their role. Another example would be that the biological approach, for example, says that mental disorder like schizophrenia, I'm sure you have heard of it multiple times, schizophrenia, is heritable, and actually there are evidences that support this finding, that there's a genetic composition that's playing its role. The biological perspective is also called as the biopsychology. That's the another name of this biological approach which we are seeing here, and it's actually playing a very crucial role in our understanding of modern psychology. So that's it. That's the whole biological approach. Now we are going to move on to the cognitive approach. Okay, the cognitive approach or the cognitive perspective of modern psychology started emerging in the 1960s. That's the timeline. The field focuses on our mental processes, and what it all includes. It includes our memory, our perception, sensation, problem solving, language, very interesting, language, learning, like how learning takes place in human beings, etc. So these are all the topics that the cognitive approach or the cognitive psychology focuses upon. Now we cannot say that it's an entirely new field, because remember, gestalt psychology, which we covered in the previous video, they also stressed upon the mental processes, uh, and they really gave it a boost. They really started this. Now, within cognitive perspective, a new field is emerging, and actually it has emerged a lot, and that's none other than the cognitive neuroscience. And what it does is, in this field, cognitive neuroscientists, they are studying human brain and various cognitive processes, which we have discussed here, which actually I have written here. And it how it does it, how it studies our mental processes. The scientists are using various techniques, various methods, like for example, there's fMRI, there is PET, and also there is MRI. Now, what's the full form? fMRI is functional magnetic resonance imaging. MRI, that's simply magnetic resonance imaging. PET, its full form is positron emission tomography, and these are being used a lot in cognitive neuroscience these days. Now let's move on to another perspective of contemporary psychology, and it's evolutionary psychology. Actually, I like this approach. Now, evolutionary psychology. Okay, so evolutionary psychology, it uses Darwin's, one of my favorite scientists, natural selection in the theory of evolution. And it uses this to explain our behavior and also our mental processes. So what evolutionary psychology does, it uses Darwin's natural selection in the theory of evolution to explain our behavior and also our mental processes. The field rests its explanation of human behavior on our evolutionary history. Evolutionary history. For an example, let's take phobias. Okay, phobias. Now, what are phobias? They are simply our irrational fears. Our irrational fears. That's S. Our irrational fears. Now, research has shown that we are more likely to fear spiders, snakes than big animals, including lions. So, how would evolutionary psychology explain such behaviors in humans? Now, from an evolutionary perspective, snakes and spiders are a bit difficult. Snakes and spiders, they are a bit difficult to spot. It's difficult. I'm sure it happens with you too. They are a bit difficult to spot. And so our ancestors had to be extra careful before sticking their hands into bushes while they were in jungles. The behavior to quickly react to these small creatures like spiders and snakes has basically passed on from generation to generation, and they have become inheritable. They have become inheritable now. And that's how evolutionary psychology would explain the phobias of spiders and snakes and other small creatures. I'm going to put the link of the paper in the show notes if in case you're interested. Now let's move on to social psychology. So social psychology is another perspective in contemporary psychology, and it is actually the scientific study of thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, etc. within a social context. Personally, I believe social psychology is a very, very wide field within psychology because there are so many concepts that we can explore, including attitude formation, aggression, then we have prejudice and discrimination, then we have conformity, cognitive dissonance, also obedience, and many more. There are other topics as well. One of my favorite topics in psychology is obedience, And there's a very famous experiment which is also one of the most controversial experiments ever done in the field of psychology. It was done by Stanley Milgram from Yale University. And obviously it was somewhere unethical and it would not be possible in the 21st century. Nevertheless, it was very important and it helped a lot in understanding humans' tendency to comply in adverse situations. That's it for social psychology. Let's move on to our final approach. That's humanistic approach. Okay, so just like the cognitive approach came out in the 1960s, humanistic psychology came out in the 1950s. There are two names which are famously associated with this approach and who were humanist. Their names are Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers. You're going to come across the names if or whenever you are studying humanistic psychology. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs is very famous. There's this whole pyramid and it can be put up as like, let's start with there is self actualization. I'm going to put down first of all the needs, then we have self-esteem, then we have social needs, then security, and last we have physiological needs. That's how it goes. So what he believed is that first we begin with fulfilling our physiological needs like food, shelter, clothing, then we move on to the security needs, then we have social needs after our security needs have been fulfilled, and then we move on to self-esteem, and lastly we go on to achieve self-actualization. So what humanists believed was that humans are inherently good. So we are inherently good, and that we are all unique human beings. It further says that we have a free will and we are actually motivated to reach our potential. And what's our potential and what's the purpose of our life? It's the self-actualization. That's self-actualization. Okay, so that's it for the day. I hope you have gained something from this video. If you have liked it, then don't forget to like this video. In case you don't want to miss out on any future videos, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I hope to see you next week. Please take care and have a good day.